Oh, that's the wrong one. All right. There we go. All right. It looks like we're live. So, Trey, thanks for coming on and being willing to have a conversation with me. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a I'm a born again Christian. I'm of the Reformed Baptist persuasion. I've been a Christian 33 years now. I'm 53 years old, so I was 20 when I became a Christian. I'm a dental lab technician. I work in this Kansas City area, and I'm self-employed. Um, I enjoy having conversations like this and bantering ideas about. Wonderful opportunity to learn and maybe share some ideas. And so I think that I had somebody, I don't know who it was, somebody um, and challenged me to go. He says, "Yeah, you got to have a conversation with TJump." And so I looked you up, and you're gracious enough to grant me an audience. So I appreciate that, and it's good to be here.
Cool, thanks. So, I'm an atheist, by which I mean I don't believe there's any reason to believe in the existence of a God. Could you tell me what reasons you believe there are? And I'd like to tell you my thoughts on those positions and hear your thoughts on my position.
Sure, that'd be great. Would it be possible for you to tell me a little bit about yourself? Because I really don't know anything about you. Have you ever had any kind of religious background, or you always raised in a skeptical home growing up? Or?
Sure, I was brought up Christian for 18 years or so, and then became an atheist sometime in high school, late high school, junior, senior year. None of my prayers were ever answered, and so that's kind of what caused me to leave the faith.
Okay.
I didn't get into the philosophy until several years later when I started to hear about the Four Horsemen and started researching their stuff.
Okay.
I thought they were like the greatest arguments ever, the Hitchens, Harris, Dawkins, Dennett, and then
Sure.
started researching into the philosophy and then realized they're not the greatest arguments. They're pretty terrible arguments. And that's when I got into the deeper philosophy, epistemology, morality, and ethics, and those kinds of things, and wrote my own version, and that was the basis of my YouTube channel.
Okay. Excellent. Now, were you Baptistic, non-denominational? What kind of?
I don't know what the denomination was. We never really
Probably
talked about the
non-denominational. Okay.
probably.
Okay. Probably so. Yeah, I like to call the four horsemen the four goat ropers of the apocalypse. I never was terribly impressed with any of their argumentation. Although I loved Hitchens' rhetorical flair. He was a master rhetorician, and I applaud him for that. I used to enjoy. I actually enjoyed watching him kind of tear up some religionists sometimes who didn't really believe. I don't think they really believed their own rhetoric, and he would expose it, and it was kind of enjoyable even to watch that sometimes. Although anyway, but I enjoyed him a lot. All right, so my perspective is, and be honest with you, I'm not that familiar with you, so I don't know a lot about your perspective, but I'm a classical apologist. I believe in a classical model of defending the faith, which is going to center around a lot of the work of Thomas Aquinas. And from my perspective, I would look basically to cosmological argumentation by way of modus ponens argumentation, looking at creation and making extrapolations from that, which I believe are grounded in Thomas's arguments, are grounded in Romans chapter 1 and chapter 2 for the basic argument for the existence of God. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if something exists, well, first of all, before we begin, I always got to ask this question. Tom, will you grant me basic reliability of sense perception and the law of non-contradiction as epistemological tools that will enable us to be able to learn or to inquire?
In the second one, law of non-contradiction, yes. In general, the first one, yes, but not always, because our sense perception is false in many.
That's right. Yeah, that's why I say general. All I need is enough sense perception to know that you, the inquirer, exist.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think, therefore I am, for sure.
Yeah. So, and which will be my first point. If something exists, then there are only four possibilities. Either it is an illusion, it is self-created, or it is self-existent, or it is created by something that is self-existent. And if I may, I go through each one of those and explain them. The first option is if something exists, or nothing exists, it's just an illusion. And of course, that goes back to the cogito ergo sum of Descartes, because in order to doubt all existence, then I would need to doubt myself as the inquirer. And if there's somebody inquiring, there's at least there must be somebody asking the question. So everything can't be an illusion. At least everything else could be an illusion. That's possible. I could be a solipsist, but I cannot doubt my own existence. So I know that I myself, the inquirer, must exist. Secondly, it's self-created. Now, something cannot create itself because it would be a violation of the law of non-contradiction. It would need to be and not be at the same time and in the same relationship. Therefore, self-creation is irrational, and it violates, again, the law of non-contradiction, which we've already granted at the beginning of the argument. The third opportunity or possibility is that which exists is self-existent. Now, that which is self-existent cannot be acted upon, because when something is acted upon, it is contingent upon that which brings the actualization upon the effect, which would be if something is self-existent, it would have to not be an effect in any way. And I know that I myself, as the inquirer, I change, and I am contingent in nature. Therefore, I cannot be self-existent. And so the last and final possibility is that which exists is created by something that is self-existent. Again, it's going to be an argument via modus ponens, in the conditional statement. If P, then Q. If contingency exists, then necessarily aseity must exist, because contingency cannot exist and not exist at the same time in the same relationship. In other words, it can't bring itself into existence before it exists, which would be the second option. So that's my argument.
Okay, cool. So the Thomistic version, essentially. So I can grant that most likely there's going to be a necessary thing that grounds the existence of everything, but there's no reason to say that necessary thing needs to be a god or a conscious being. It could just be some feature of nature that we haven't discovered yet, like an eternal, all-powerful natural law that we just don't know about. So there's no reason to conclude that the necessary thing is a being or conscious, and we have pretty good reason to actually exclude those as possibilities. And I think that on its own is just consistent with everything you presented as an argument.
Okay, so how do you, would you agree then that there is purpose within the universe?
No.
Okay, did you purpose to say that?
Purpose is an adverb. You can't use it like that. It doesn't work in a sentence. You can't purpose to say something.
No, you can use purpose as an adverb or as a noun, but it really doesn't matter. It's in other words,
well, you used it as a verb. You said did you purpose to say that? That's a verb. You can't use it as a verb. That's not.
Are you saying that the concept of purpose as an action does not exist?
Yes, that doesn't even make sense. Purpose isn't an action.
You can't purpose to do something? I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
No, purpose is like an intentionality. You can't intention something. You can have intention then do something, but you can't do intention.
Okay, so intentionality does exist.
Yes, you can intention to do things.
So the universe does have intention.
No, the universe does not have intention. We create intention.
Are you a part of the intention? Are you part of the universe?
Yes.
Okay, then the universe does have intention.
No. Again, that's a composition division fallacy. You're equivocating between two different frames. Like, does intention exist as a thing, or is it a part of the universe? Like, gravity is a part of the universe. Gravity is something that exists in the universe. Unicorns are not, but I can imagine a unicorn. Does that mean it is a part of a universe because I'm imagining it? Well, clearly no, because there's two senses of the term exist as a part of the universe. One is does it exist as a real thing independent of minds? And the other is it an imaginary thing made up by human minds? And in the case of intention and purpose, those are made up things by human minds, like unicorns or leprechauns. They don't exist in the universe.
Oh, so it's a lie.
What?
Intention is something that you make up in order as a crutch to help you make it through life. That's not true.
The best evidence we have is that intention is only a product of minds.
Well, yeah. And that's my point. Intentionality cannot instantiate unintentionally. You understand
yes, it can. Unicorns can exist in our minds without actually unicorns existing, and intentionality
I'm not talking
can
about
exist.
unicorns. I'm talking about the very intention, the very instantiation of intention.
Right, and I'm using those as analogous here. So just like unicorns can exist in our heads without a unicorn existing in the world, intentionality can exist in our heads without actually existing in the world. It doesn't need to actually predate the mind. It can be created by the mind without existing prior to it, just like unicorns.
And where did that intentionality come from?
The mind.
Okay, so the mind is creating something that does not exist. It's not real. It's like a dream.
Right, just like unicorns and leprechauns.
Okay, can you live consistently with that perspective?
I assume so. Yes, I don't. There's no reason it would be inconsistent. Yes, you can, but I don't see the relevance to anything.
Would you mind going and walking in front of the car that's moving in front of your house right now?
I would not do that because I know the consequences of it.
Consequences of what?
Walking in front of a car, assuming
What
it's
would
moving,
What would it be?
being hit by the car.
Is that a problem?
Yes, I don't want to be hit by the car
Why?
because I don't want to be hit by the car.
There's intention there, right?
Yes.
Is it real intention?
It's a figment of my imagination. So no, it does not exist as a part of the universe,
Okay.
just like unicorns and leprechauns.
Okay, so the very fact that your life does not matter is too hard for you to be able to live consistently with. So you've got to make up.
No, that was all perfectly consistent. There's no contradiction there. Like, so intentionality can exist as a part of our imagination, just like unicorns and leprechauns. That doesn't make it any less true. So it's just not a part of the universe. It's
Oh,
just
it
a
is
part
true.
of our imagination.
It is true that.
No, again, you're equivocating. I've already covered this. Like the universe, unicorns do not exist in the universe, but they do exist in our imagination. So there's two different usages of the word exist there. One is as a figment of our imagination, and the other is as a property of the universe. Intentionality does not exist as a property of the universe; it exists as a property of our imagination. There's no contradiction there.
Tom, why do you live every moment of your life as if intentionality is real?
Because I like it.
Okay, so you just emote the reality, but
Essentially, yes.
You don't have a reason for it.
No, the emote is the reason. So there's no contradiction. Again, this has nothing to do with your argument. It does nothing to help you. So I don't know. Like I could just grant there's no reason and I choose to live on no reason based off of it, just randomly.
Okay.
But that has nothing to do with God.
Tom, you granted me the law of non-contradiction.
No.
And you granted me that our conversation matters.
Oh, yeah, yes. I granted the law of non-contradiction, but this has nothing to do with your argument. This doesn't do anything to promote your
Law of
argument.
non-contradiction is one of the laws of thought, of rational coherence.
Right, I agree. But again, so how I choose to live my life is irrelevant to whether or not a God exists or does not exist. It does nothing whether I live it with intentionality or if I don't live it with intentionality. If I choose to live with contradictions and believe in a square circle, has nothing to do with whether or not a God exists. So this doesn't do anything to promote your argument.
Okay, yeah, but the whole reason I'm bringing this up is because you said that intentionality, there's no reason to say that the ultimate reality, the ase, being, or what did you say? It doesn't have
the necessary thing. There's no reason to believe the necessary thing has a mind or a consciousness.
Okay, does it have ontological status?
Ontological status just means it exists, essentially.
Right. So you do believe it does.
The necessary thing exists. Yes.
Okay.
Why it's necessary.
And so can personality instantiate unintentionally?
That is gibberish. It doesn't make sense. What are you asking?
You're saying that intentionality exists in the universe, yet you say that the entire...
So I already covered this. You already asked this. Unicorns can exist in our minds as a product of our minds with no unicorns actually being in the universe. So things can be made up by the mind without them actually existing. So intentionality can exist as a product of the mind without having existed before that. So it could just be a product of the human mind and nothing else, and that's totally fine.
Okay, so are you familiar with the principle of proportionate causality?
Yep.
What is it?
That things cannot create that which they don't have, something like that.
Okay, you cannot have, like, for example, rocks creating philosophical society.
Right. Okay. So what is it exactly like? I didn't phrase it exactly right. What is it? It's like things cannot come from something it doesn't have or something like that.
Yeah, something cannot impart a property that it itself does not have the capacity.
Right. Composition division fallacy, immediately wrong. Everyone discards it in philosophy. Like walls can come from bricks, but no brick has the property of wall. Suns can come from atoms. No atom has the property of sun. Oceans can come from
purpose.
It doesn't matter. It's a composition division fallacy, regardless of whether it's material or immaterial. So you can't say that simply because something, the collection has some property that the individual parts don't have, therefore the parts cannot be what makes the whole. It's just a composition division fallacy.
It's a completely different category.
It applies to all things. It doesn't matter if it's physical or not.
Well, sure we are. You can't just throw categories together. They've got to have some correspondence.
No, that's a composition division fallacy. Again, this was already covered. This is just basic philosophy. You can't just say simply because the whole doesn't have the parts, therefore none of the parts necessarily have it. Just a straight up composition division fallacy, philosophy 101.
We're not talking about matter, Tom.
It doesn't matter. Matter is irrelevant to the conversation. This applies to all things. This is a part of the law of non-contradiction. It doesn't matter if it's matter or not. That's irrelevant.
The law of non-contradiction.
So again, just to go back, you cannot say that the whole, because it has some property, therefore it cannot be a product of the parts. That is just a composition division fallacy. It doesn't matter if it's matter or not.
We're not talking about matter. We're talking
Stop saying that or I'm going to mute you. It does not matter if it is matter. Matter is irrelevant to the fallacy. It's a fallacy regardless of whether or not you're talking about matter.
Intentionality is not something you can grasp.
That is, again, this is irrelevant to the point. A composition division fallacy, just by definition, means the whole, if it has a property, can be product of the parts, regardless of whether or not the parts have any other property. It doesn't matter if there's matter as a part of it. Matter is irrelevant. I didn't say matter at all in that definition.
Okay, doesn't matter. Your entire set of reality is unintentional. Okay, that's how you define it, right? And you're saying that intentionality arose out of this unintentional set. Is that correct? Okay. Are you familiar with the law of identity?
Yes.
Okay. How can unintentionality intend intentionality?
It doesn't matter. This is the composition division fallacy. We can get a wall out of bricks. No brick has the property of wall, but if you add enough bricks together, you get a wall.
Tom, you can play the childish game.
This is no game. This is just basic philosophy. You cannot say that the whole has some property and none of the parts have the property.
Nothing to do with what I'm saying, my friend.
That's exactly what you're saying. You're saying intentionality is some property, that the whole that exists in the universe, and there's nothing in the universe that has that property.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying the whole thing is unintentional. It is unintentional by definition. Therefore, intentionality cannot be a part of it because it's intentional by definition.
Which is a composition division fallacy. That is literally the definition of a composition division fallacy. You're saying that none of these things, none of the parts or this thing is intentional. Therefore, intentionality can't be a result of any interaction within it.
It doesn't matter what I say, does it?
Sort of. So again, I'm not sure what you're not understanding here. If you're saying that none of the parts of the universe have intentionality, therefore no possible interaction of the parts within the universe can result in intentionality, that is by definition a composition division fallacy.
No, it's not. Because intentionality...
That's literally what it is. That's literally what a composition division fallacy is. Like, you just Google the definition of the term. That's literally what it is.
You can't say, I have a pile of rocks, therefore the rocks cannot somehow begin to desire things by your logic.
No, that's not how it works. So that's not even a coherent argument.
Exactly what you're saying.
No, so
I define it as since I define it as something that I would like to happen, therefore I can put a whole bunch together. How can you have a pile of inertness somehow begin to value things when unintentionality is what defines it?
Because the pile of rocks can become a brain, and brains have certain kinds of chemical interactions that can categorize things in certain systematic ways, which can result in things like intentionality, just like beliefs and ideas and color.
So unintentionality intends intentionality eventually.
No, unintentionality can produce intentionality through interactions. It doesn't intend anything.
It has to intend it in order to do it. Because
it can produce.
Is unintentional by definition.
Yes, so unintentionality can produce intentionality. Just like bricks can produce walls, even though none of them have the property of wall.
Okay, but that bricks and walls makes no sense whatsoever. We're talking about different categories.
No, it's the exact same category. This is literally a composition division fallacy. It is the textbook example of a composition division fallacy. So unintentionality, like a pile of rocks, if given the correct interaction, can produce intentionality, because intentionality is a result of the interactions of the rocks. Yes.
Okay, so is love a real thing?
It's as real as any other emotion, so it's just a product of the brain.
Okay, does it matter?
I don't understand the question. Does it matter?
Does life matter?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think society should value existence?
Yes.
Why?
Because it matters.
But it doesn't matter, really.
It does matter, but again, this is this is just my pure subjective opinion here, but this has nothing to do with whether or not a God exists. Like,
well, sure it does. Because
so?
unintentionality cannot exist, or intentionality cannot exist unintentionally. This is the whole thing.
I already disproved that. That's a composition division fallacy. I mean, you keep coming back to this, but I've already proven this factually wrong. I can just QED, philosophical done, composition division fallacy.
You're special pleading.
The composition division fallacy is just a textbook philosophical fallacy.
Fallacy whatsoever.
It is. I mean, if you just want to disagree with that, you can, but you're just wrong. I mean, this is the textbook definition of one. Like, if you want to take that up with philosophy and try and publish a paper to disprove just common, well-established philosophy, go for it.
But all I need is law of identity, my friend.
No, I've already disproved that. So you're just making a composition division fallacy. I mean, if you want to argue against that, feel free to publish a paper about it, but it's not my area. Go for it. But your example of saying intentionality can't come from unintentionality is just a composition division fallacy. It's the textbook example.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what else are we going to talk about?
What else do you got? Because that argument was easy enough to disprove. Do you have any others?
Your applause is to an audience of one, my friend.
Well, no, I mean, this is just common philosophy. Like you can just
No,
Google any philosopher and ask them this exact question, and they're going to give you the same answer. I mean, this is one of the common rebuttals to Aquinas. It's just obvious. Like, no, it doesn't work that way.
you cannot have unintentionality instantiate.
You can't have walls. You
Unintentional.
can't have walls with bricks. Like, no.
Walls
Well,
and bricks are material. They're not
material,
gold.
again, I already covered that. It has nothing to do with material or
Is a brick
non-material.
teleological?
The philosophical composition
Answer the
fallacy
question, Tom. Is a brick teleological?
is a brick teleological.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's a matter. You need to have an efficient cause.
Teleology is design. It's organized design. So yes, is bricks designed? Yes, bricks are designed. So do they have teleology? Yes.
No, do bricks have purpose? I'm not talking about
Yes.
material. I'm talking about. I'm sorry.
Yes, we give bricks purpose. That's why.
No.
Bricks.
Do they have purpose? Are they purposeful beings?
Well, a being is just an object. So an object that we make has purpose that we have imparted onto it, but it doesn't have purpose inherent in its essence. If that's what you're asking.
Okay, so it does not have telos in and of itself. In other words, the brick making the wall is not teleological. That's the matter. That's the material cause. How do you equate?
No. Teleology is just design. So this has nothing to do with the composition division fallacy. A composition division fallacy applies to all things in all possible worlds, regardless of whether they're physical or non-physical or natural or supernatural. It doesn't make a difference. You cannot say that the whole.
But it doesn't apply to this concept we're talking about.
Again, so the composition division fallacy is that you were saying that the whole has some property which cannot be produced by any of the parts. So if you're saying that unintentionality cannot produce intentionality, that is a composition division fallacy.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's a definitional thing. Unintentionality is unintentional. It
That's
can't
correct.
be anything other. But you're saying it can be intentional.
Right. Just like I can say no hydrogen atom has the property of ocean, but if you add enough of them together, you can get an ocean. So
we're talking about efficiency here. We're not talking about matter.
It doesn't make a difference. Again, so you keep bringing up matter, but I've already covered that. So you can say unintentionality, some property, some object like a brick has no intentionality, but or a particle has no intentionality, but if you add enough particles together, they can get intentionality by producing brains. So unintentionality by particles, if added together, can cause interactions which can produce intentionality.
Okay, so intentionality is a real thing then.
As real as any other emotion.
Okay, so it's objectively true that there's intentionality in the universe.
In the universe, yes. A part of the universe, no.
I don't understand the difference.
Unicorns exist in our minds. They do not exist in the universe. I already covered that. So we can imagine things that are a part of our head that don't exist in the universe. They're not a function or a property or an essence of the universe. They're imaginary. They're a product of the mind. Emotions are a product of the mind.
Okay, but that's not real.
Again, real can mean two different things. So yes, it's imaginary, which means it's not a part of the universe independently. It's a product of the mind. So intentionality is a product of the mind. And intentionality can be the result of unintentional material forces all on their own. There's no intentionality in the universe. It's just a property of the mind. So it's not real, like you said.
Okay, but Tom, why do you live your life as if it is real?
Again, this has nothing to do with the way I choose to live my life or not is irrelevant to the question. You could just be asking this to a computer. A computer can tell you this answer. So it doesn't matter. Like you keep saying, well, how do you live your life? It's irrelevant. If you asked a computer, can unintentionality come from intentionality? It gives you the same response, and it doesn't have a life. So asking it how it lives its life is irrelevant to the question.
You say something is true, but you can't live consistency with what you say is true.
No, I can live perfectly consistently, but again, this is irrelevant.
An argument that is inconsistent is an argument that fails, and that's where you're at.
No, again, so the argument can be consistent independently of how I live. The way I live is irrelevant
you're making
to the argument.
And you're asserting it to be true.
Yes, but that is irrelevant to how I live. How I choose to live is irrelevant to the argument. The argument is true or false, independent.
Tom, you're saying my view does not work, but that doesn't matter because it's inconvenient.
No. Again, so I can live perfectly consistently with everything I've said.
No,
but my point is that
can't.
Yes, I can. I can do
you
it.
Don't.
Yeah, I do.
You're having this conversation right now in direct contradiction to what you say.
No.
You're saying nothing matters, but you're trying to argue for truth.
No, I'm saying there's no objective matter as an essence of the universe, but I'm saying matter, purpose and meaning are parts of the brain, which are a product of our interactions. That doesn't make them any less meaningful.
But they're making up lies about reality.
That's totally fine.
But you're not living that way.
So steak tastes good, but this taste isn't like a true thing in the universe. It's just a product of the mind. That's totally fine. I still like steak. So that is perfectly consistent in my worldview. Meaning and purpose don't need to be an objective thing independent of the mind. They can still be a part of the mind, and I choose to do them. Like hunger can be a product of the mind, but I still choose to eat. So there's no inconsistency there. But I want to go back to this main point, is that it's irrelevant how I live my life. This argument is true or false, independent of anyone giving the argument. This could be written down on a sheet of paper, and asking the sheet of paper how it lives its life is not going to make the argument not true.
Paper is not teleological. It's not moving.
That's irrelevant to the point. So if I write this argument down on a piece of paper and give you the piece of paper and walk away, you can't ask the piece of paper, well, how do you live your life? The piece of paper isn't alive. The argument is still true or false, regardless of whether or not the paper is alive or whether it's on a computer screen. It doesn't make a difference.
The paper is not thinking anything. The paper is not asserting something on the TV right now.
That's how arguments work. Arguments are true or false, independent of the person giving the argument.
And people make the arguments by way of teleology, right?
No, teleology is design. Teleology has nothing to do with the way the arguments
work. You don't design this argument?
No, the arguments aren't designed. That's not how design works. So again, the arguments are
You're not designing an argument right now.
No, that's not how design works. So arguments are true or false, independent of anyone giving the argument. So you could write the argument down, imagine it being given by a computer screen, or just randomly come across like a premise written in sand from quantum mechanics. It makes no difference. The argument is true or false, regardless of how I live my life, or anyone lives their life, because it's completely irrelevant to the truth or falsity of the argument. What you're saying makes no sense.
I'm not making a mathematical
all arguments work this way. It doesn't make a difference what the argument is. It doesn't matter how anyone lives their life. The argument is true
must correspond to reality in order to be useful to us. Do you agree with that?
Useful, yes, but it's true or false.
Okay,
that's totally irrelevant to the point again, because the argument can be true or false regardless of whether or not it's useful. You can make mathematical arguments about infinities that we have no action or interaction with. They're still true or false regardless of whether or not they're useful. So nothing you've said has been anything about the argument yet. So to go back, the way a person lives their life is irrelevant to the truth or falsity of any argument they make. So you keep bringing that up. There is no inconsistency with my view. I can live perfectly consistently. But again, that has nothing to do with the argument's truth or falsity. Like I don't want to have to explain this very basic philosophy to you. It's very simple.
This chat room smells like poop, and somebody's got it in their shoe and doesn't realize it.
Yeah, probably you, because this is basic philosophy. Like you keep saying, "Oh, how do you live your life?" as if that somehow affects the argument.
It's everything, my friend. We are here to search for truth.
That's great. That's great. But how you live your life does not affect the truth or falsity of the argument. It does. It's a red herring.
If you're making an argument about value, and then you do not have a consistency regarding that value, then it's useless.
No. So the value, I can say here's a list of things which is objective value, and I can live completely contrary to those things. That list is still true or false, regardless of how I live. How I live makes no effect on the objective truth or falsity of the argument.
But you're making an assertion about the reality of value in this universe, and you live exactly contradiction to it. Why would I listen to you?
Again, that's a dumb argument, because
that's why we're here.
No. Again, you're making a stupid argument. So let me explain it to you again. I can say that it is objectively wrong to kill, but I can go kill a bunch of people. I can still be right that it's objectively wrong to kill. My actions in the world have nothing to do with the truth or falsity of the argument being made. If Hitler says 1 + 1 = 2, he's correct. Like the fact of the argument being made is true or false, regardless of anything I do or how I live my life. How I live my life is irrelevant completely and totally in every possible logical world. It has no difference on whether or not the argument I'm making is true or false.
Okay. Let me ask you this. If every single atheist that lives on the planet says that life is meaningless, and yet they live every moment of their life, should anybody take notice of that?
Again, that's a stupid argument. Like I don't understand why you're being so stupid. Like you should take note of something because it's true or false. How people live has nothing to do with whether or not it's true or false.
You lost, my friend.
No. I'm sorry, but you're just an idiot. Like if I said 1 + 1, if all of the atheists said 1 + 1 = 2, and when all of the atheists murder people, should you discount them? No, because their statement is true independent of the people making it.
1 + 1.2 has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
I'm trying to make it simpler because you're too stupid to understand.
Because you lost the argument.
No, because you're too stupid to understand. Like, do you not get this? So 1 + 1 = 2 is true independent of who is saying it.
Yes. I don't doubt
Great.
that. We're
So,
not
okay,
talking about
now
one
pull
plus
your
one
head
is
out of your
two.
ass and say values. If I say a value, like killing people is wrong, it doesn't matter how many people I kill. That statement is still true or false, independent of how I live my life. Do you not see that those are the same thing?
I wonder if this video will make it to
Do you not see that those are the same thing? 1 + 1 = 2 is true or false, independent of who's saying it. Killing people is bad is true or false, independent of who's saying it. Do you get the very simple thing there? This is not
Excuse me,
hard.
Tom. Can you hold for just a second? I've got somebody
Go
coming here.
for it.
All right, thanks. I apologize, Tom. I had a doctor come in and
No
chat,
problem.
chat, chat. So,
That happens. You got 2 pairs of glasses on.
oh,
Okay,
all right.
so
So where were we?
I wanted to go back. So like if Hitler said there are some values like killing people is wrong, but he chooses to kill millions of people,
Mhm.
like, and your response is, well, why would we take him seriously? Well, we wouldn't. The fact of whether or not it's right or wrong to kill people has to be assessed independently of the one saying it. The argument and the person saying it are independent things. They have no connection between the two things. So whether or not, if I say there is value or if I say there is not value, those two statements, one is true and one is false regardless of how I live my life. And
Right.
how I live my life, no matter how it is, will not change the truth or falsity of those two statements.
Okay, but with the Hitler scenario, you're saying basically you're already assuming there's value.
Well, no, no,
Do you
no,
see
no.
the
Again, so
problem?
this is like, if there is value or there is not value, one of that statement, if I said there is value, that statement is either true or it is false. Law of non-contradiction. It has to either be true or false. And now it doesn't. Now, no matter how Hitler lives his life, he could kill lots of people or save lots of people. It will have no effect on the truth or falsity of the claim, killing people is wrong. Do you follow?
No, because you're assuming the very thing that we're talking about.
Well, no, there either is value or there is not value. Law of non-contradiction, right? So
Right.
if Hitler says there is value, either that statement is true or false. It's one or the other. Law of non-contradiction. It can't be both, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
so, and
The
how
law.
Hitler lives his life can't change the truth or falsity of that statement. That statement either is true or it is false, and nothing
Right.
Hitler does is going to make it any more
But that
true.
doesn't matter. You're assuming that's the very thing in question here.
No,
You
no,
can't say
no.
that both exist and doesn't exist.
Right. So I'm saying either it's true or it's false. I haven't assumed anything. I don't know if it's true or false. I'm just saying either it's true or it's false. So I
Right.
haven't assumed anything.
And you're saying it's true,
No, no,
or
no, no,
you're
no,
saying
no,
it's
no. I'm saying
false, but you're living as if it's true.
either it's true or it's false. I don't know which is the case, but my actions in life will not have any effect on it one way or the other. Do you follow so far?
No, because you're asserting
I
something
haven't
that affects.
asserted anything about value yet. I have not said that I'm living my life based on value. Again, so this is just the Hitler
Right, but
example.
that's what we're arguing.
Right. So I have to get you there. I'm going to walk you there like a little kid, one step at a time. Do you follow
Okay.
the argument?
Yeah.
Either if Hitler says there is value, he is either correct and that statement is true, or he is incorrect and that statement is false. And no way how he lives his life is going to change the truth or falsity of the statement. Do you
And
follow
what
just that part?
and what is the efficient cause that determines whether he is true or false?
Why are you avoiding the question? Do you
I'm
follow
not.
that part?
You got to answer my question. If it is true objectively,
I asked
whether
you
Hitler
first. Could you
is right
please?
or wrong,
Could you
his statement is
please?
right or wrong. How do you determine that?
You don't need to determine that. This is just the law of non-contradiction. You don't have to
Okay,
determine anything yet.
there
Just
must be
for the,
somebody outside watching it. Do you understand that?
no. Again, this is the law of
You're
non-contradiction.
the one who's outside, standing outside the scenario, saying, "I'm going to judge whether it's objectively true or it's
No, no, no.
objectively."
I'm not going to say it's true or false at all. I don't care if it's true or false. It is irrelevant whether it's true or false. I'm just saying either it's true or it's false. I'm going to make no judgment either way. I don't need to. So
Okay,
there's no truth or false here.
then
It's
you're
just,
making no assertion.
that's correct. This is
Even
just,
in this scenario, right now, you're talking about Hitler. It doesn't matter because there's nobody watching.
that's irrelevant to the point. Again, this is just the law of non-contradiction. Do you or do you not understand that the argument is independent of the person making the argument, and nothing they do can have any effect or the
No, it's
truth
not
or
independent.
falsity of the argument?
It's not independent because there's got to be a mind that's
Do
discerned.
you or do
whether-
you not understand that the argument is independent of the person making it?
Of the individual person making it, yes.
Correct. So the way I live my life has no bearing at all on the truth or falsity of the argument I'm making. Correct.
Yes, it does because you're the one making the assertion.
No, again, this is I don't know why you can't understand this. It doesn't make a difference how I live my life. The
It absolutely
statement I
does. It
say,
makes all the
even if I'm completely insane and just saying gibberish, the
Because you're the
gibberish
one-
statement can still be true regardless of whether or not I recognize what the statement means.
Yes, it can be true. But the thing is you're the one making the assertion.
Which is
And if you're
irrelevant
the
to
one-
whether or not the statement is true. So again, my point is just, is this statement true? And you bringing up my actions in life have nothing to do with whether or not this statement is true. It's irrelevant. It's called a red herring.
No, it's called you're not able to live consistently. What you say is true, so you're not saying what is
No,
true.
I can perfectly live consistently, but again, my major
No, you
point
can't.
is that's a
No, you
stupid
can't.
argument because it has nothing to do with the truth or falsity of the claim.
You have admitted already that no atheist can live consistently.
No,
with
I
what is
never admitted that.
true.
All atheists can live perfectly consistently. The
So,
point
so
is that
all atheists live in contradiction to what they say is
no
true.
atheist lives in contradiction with what they say. They are all perfectly consistent. But again, the point I'm making is what you're saying is complete stupid because it doesn't matter. Even if I say you're right and all atheists live completely inconsistently, they're still, the argument they're making can still be true regardless of how they live. How they
But-
live makes no difference to the argument.
How do you determine them?
The
This
law
is
of
the whole thing.
non-contradiction. I just proved this.
No, you didn't. You did not prove
If
something.
Hitler
Something cannot
says
be
1 + 1
valuable
equals
and
2,
invaluable at the same time in the same
If
relationship.
Hitler says 1 + 1 = 2, the argument he's making is true or false, independent of the way he lives his life. The person making the argument has no bearing on the truth or falsity of the argument. So it doesn't make a difference how many atheists can live their life consistently or inconsistently or non-logically. Some quantum logic, some inconsistent violation of the law of non-contradiction makes no difference.
Okay,
Because the
let's try this.
arguments they're saying are still true or false, independent of anything they do at all.
Okay, let's
Nothing
try
they
this.
can do can affect the argument.
Okay, let's imagine you say that Hitler, or let's say Jim Bob says that 2 plus 2 equals 4, and yet he lives in such a way that he tries to make everything 2 plus 2 equal 5. Okay, I can grant you that 2 plus 2 is 4 is true independent of how he lives his life. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about value itself. In other words, you can say that life is meaningless, yet you live every moment of your life as if it's not true. I have a right to say, you know what? I don't think you're right, because because I'm saying it can instantiate unintentionally, and you're saying it can instantiate unintentionally, and I got to say which side looks most consistent with reality. And yours is incoherent because you're inconsistent. Mine is consistent. I'm completely
No, nothing you said makes sense there. So again, you're saying that I make a value statement and then I don't live in consistently with that value statement.
Value statement, value period.
Right. So I make a value statement. I'm saying their value exists or value doesn't exist or whatever. And you're saying I don't live consistently with the statement I made. But that has nothing to do with the truth or falsity of the statement, does it?
It has, yes, because you're assuming value in the statement and in the conversation you're having.
No.
It doesn't really matter.
No. Again, I've covered this. Nothing I believe, nothing I say, nothing I can do is irrelevant to the truth or falsity of the statement. If I just say gibberish and I know nothing, I'm completely insane just saying gibberish, the gibberish can be true regardless of anything I believe or say or do. The person making the claim is irrelevant to the truth or falsity of the claim. So if an atheist says value exists, you have to assess that statement independent of the person making it. The person making it is irrelevant. You have to discount them completely. This is just basic ad hominem nonsense. You can't say, well, you're an atheist, therefore this statement must be false. It makes no sense.
I'm not making a statement.
It's exactly what you're saying. You're saying,
no,
you don't live consistently with the statement you made, which is irrelevant to the statement. The statement can
because
be true,
value is necessarily linked to human action. Do you understand that?
Which is, again, you've said nothing. Again, so the argument is value exists, and you're saying, oh, but you're an atheist and you don't live consistently with that statement. Like,
because you're saying that value doesn't exist.
Right, sorry. So if I'm an atheist and I say value doesn't exist, and I live my life as if value exists, that doesn't make the statement any more or less true. That statement, value does not exist, is either true or false, regardless of anything I do in living.
But part of your evidence is to say, what do we have in this world via causalitatis is what we're doing right now. We're looking at the universe and we're saying, what best explains reality? And you're saying, well, there's no value, but I don't live that way. And I'm thinking, okay, I do think there's value and I do live that way. Who should I be listened to?
Neither. That's the ad hominem fallacy. It's not about who said it. If you're trying to assess the truth of the statement based off of who said it, that's either an ad hominem.
I'm saying whose argument corresponds to reality.
Correct. That's something. No, you're right. So you have to take the statement and then assess the evidence behind the statement.
That's exactly right.
But how you live your life is irrelevant.
Is the evidence.
Makes no difference.
That is the evidence.
No, again, that's irrelevant.
It's value we're talking about. It's teleology.
No, again, I've already covered this. If Hitler says killing people is wrong and Hitler kills lots of people, that isn't evidence that the statement he made is wrong.
I hope this doesn't disappear into the ether world.
This is fairly easy logic. Hitler says killing people is wrong, but he kills lots of people. The fact that he kills lots of people is not evidence his statement is wrong. His actions in life are not evidence. That's the problem. You keep saying, well, we like to do this stuff, therefore it's evidence it's real.
When Hitler said, my view is correct, that life does not matter, it doesn't, again, the whole scenario, where we're looking at the entire scenario, is assuming something about value. And so the way that the person lives who's making the assertion is fundamental when you're talking about value.
No, again, that's an ad hominem fallacy. It's immediately wrong. Now, you can make the argument that most humans tend to act in a way that is for value. You can say that and use that as a counter argument. You cannot say that the way you live is a counter argument, because that's irrelevant. The way one person chooses to live, the person making the argument, is irrelevant to the argument. You have to say that most humans choose to live with value, and that's my argument. I'm saying that value exists. You cannot say that you're a person that you don't live consistently with that argument, because it's irrelevant to the argument.
I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm talking about every single person who says there's no value. Every single person.
Right. And so you can say that humans in general tend to act with a system of value, therefore value exists. You can make that argument. You cannot make the argument that some person is acting inconsistently with their statement
No.
as if that's evidence. That's not evidence.
I'm saying value cannot instantiate unintentionally, and I'm saying you are a demonstration of that in the fact that you say no, value
Okay, that was
can't.
all gibberish. That was all gibberish. You're gonna have to.
And you're saying value doesn't instantiate unintentionally. You're saying value does instantiate intentionally. I'm sorry. You're saying that value instantiates unintentionally, and I'm saying it doesn't because it's impossible. And I'm saying, look at your life. You say that there's no value, and yet you live as if value is part of the entire argument.
I already covered that. That argument I covered at the very beginning.
Every single person who makes that argument. That's why it's analytically false.
Well, no, I covered that at the very beginning. So it's just equating two different usages of the word exist, essentially. So value can exist as a product of the mind, and I act as if value exists as a product of the mind.
But it's not true. It's not something.
You're assuming your belief already. You can't do that. So I believe that value exists as a product of the mind, and I act as if value exists as a product of the mind. There's no inconsistency there. Yeah, I do.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. I don't want to get hit by a car because I want my brain to continue functioning.
And your neighbor.
It's a value in my brain.
Are you supposed to care for your neighbor?
Yes, supposed to. Yes.
Okay, why? Because it's a lie that their life matters, right?
No, it values to brains. It values to brains.
Oh,
their
so
life matters because
brains
of
value.
brains. Yes.
Okay, if a brain does not value, is it broken?
Probably.
Is it determined to do so?
Biologically?
Biology is not personal. It has no efficiency to it.
Our brains are determined by biology. So everything we believe, all of our values, all of our belief systems are determined by biology. Yes.
Okay, so biology is a valuer.
No. Value is an emergent property of
that's a Just So story. This is the only one.
No, it's an emergent property. Remember the whole bricks and walls thing? If you put enough bricks together, you get a wall.
Unintentionality cannot give rise.
Composition division fallacy. You already proved that false.
Anyway.
So I mean, all of your arguments so far are just basic fallacies, like composition division fallacy, red herring fallacy.
I can tell you that for sure.
I mean, I can just give you an email of a philosopher, and you can just ask this verbatim. Everyone agrees with this.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
No, unintentionality cannot instantiate.
Composition division fallacy, philosophy 101. Just ask any philosopher. Done.
Okay.
Right. That's not. It's like saying the world is flat. Kind of levels of wrong. Like obviously we know that's wrong. It's just a composition division fallacy.
Yeah, that's all we got. And intentionality just doesn't really exist. It's just a fantasy that we impose that was determined by nothing in our minds that informs our lives in a negative sort of way because we don't really live according to reality. But yet it's good because it keeps us from killing each other for no reason. Beautiful. You are a genius.
That has nothing to do with the argument again. So
this is what we're arguing, my friend. We're trying to find out what is true, what corresponds to reality, and you're giving me a bunch of gibberish.
No, I'm just saying that what you said is a composition division fallacy, which is literally the textbook definition of a composition division fallacy. So that doesn't work. So value and intention and purpose can all be a result of a brain, which is matter, non-intention, non-value, non-purpose, interacting and creating those things, just like water can interact and create oceans or rivers.
Just like rocks have philosophical societies and art museums.
Yes, they do. They're called brains.
The matter itself.
Yes. If you put enough rocks together in the right chemical compositions, they can produce emergent properties called brain functions, and which can produce cathedrals and art.
That's the glory of the glory of the Darwinian synthesis, which is inanimate. What was it called? What was this theory called?
That had nothing to do with Darwinian anything. That's abiogenesis.
Abiogenesis now, huh?
Yeah, that's abiogenesis. That has nothing to do with Darwinian anything. Value doesn't come from Darwinian. It's abiogenesis.
No, it's a Darwinian synthesis. It's something that mice can grow out of rags. I can't think of the word right now. The term for the
no, because
spontaneous generation. It's spontaneous generation. It just happens. It's just
it's just an interaction. So it's not spontaneous.
Fish growing in ponds with that are secluded from everything. That's where in frogs. That's how it happens. It's just
no. The consensus in biology is not that at all. I mean, all of this stuff, all of this emotional stuff is explained.
I'm not interested in consensus anyway. I'm interested in good thinking.
Yeah, good thinking is usually based off of the consensus. Like they're the ones who actually understand it better than we do. So if they've probably if the vast majority of them,
the Copernican revolution was consensus.
Not at the time, but it is now. So if you have evidence,
Yeah.
yes,
Darwinian
yes,
synthesis
yes.
is not
So
unworkable.
again, the consensus is the most reasonable conclusion for anybody who understands the topic until you have better evidence to show otherwise.
and it
You have
and
no
it
better
changes
evidence.
and it changes all the time, right?
No, not all the time. It does change though.
Really?
Yes.
So we are no longer
It changes rarely.
geocentric.
It changes very rarely under conditions of
It
extremely
changes all
powerful
the
evidence.
time.
No,
Science is
no,
changing all the time, Tom. You
no.
know that.
The science is not changing at all. It's just the things we understand with science are changing. We
That's
get better
right.
tools.
The
Science is the
discipline,
same.
empiricism doesn't give great deal. You
No
yourself said at the
one,
beginning of
most
this
people aren't
conversation
empiricists. Empiricism died a
that our
long time
senses
ago.
trick us, so therefore it must change all the time.
No one's an empiricist anymore. Like
What's that?
most people are not empiricists anymore. Empiricism
What are
is
they?
long gone. Fallibilists.
Which is what? I don't know what that is.
It's a position in philosophy that we can have knowledge without absolute certainty.
And knowledge is made by way of the senses, no?
No, some knowledge is, but you also have conceptual knowledge like math and logic, which is not made by the senses.
Okay, but generally speaking, our society is one that is marked by epistemological. It's mainly scientism that
No,
your senses are it.
no. Scientism is the position that science is the only way to gain true knowledge, which essentially everyone rejects. We accept.
No, everybody doesn't reject it. I think that it's stupid. Yeah,
No.
but no,
It's
it's a very popular held
you
perspective.
can just Google like the surveys, the Phil surveys paper in philosophy and scientific research. Most people reject scientism completely because there's other kinds of knowledge. Like science is just a
The
way.
majority of the scientific community today rejects scientism.
Yes, they accept that there's other ways to gain knowledge that are not scientific. Science just gives us a certain kind of knowledge, which is knowledge about the world. So there's other kinds of knowledge which are conceptual, which have nothing to do with the world, and you can get those without science.
Right. So, and you would agree that matter is not all there is.
Matter and energy and motion is all we have reason to believe for the time being.
Okay, well then, how do you have conceptual realities like
Emergent property of the brain, same way you have oceans.
abstract mathematics?
Same way you have emergent properties like oceans from combinations of water. It's an emergent property of the brain.
Oh, and they never change? Emergent properties are perfections?
Perfections aren't a thing. There are languages like logic and math are formal languages made up by humans. They don't change because they're descriptive, but they do actually change because there used to not be a zero, and now there's a zero. There's formal ways to express
human
things.
constructs. Mathematics is a human construct?
It's a language to describe reality. So yes,
Okay, does reality exist apart from the language?
yes,
Okay, so then the language is not the reality.
correct. The language just describes the
So
reality.
mathematics is not a product of the mind.
Mathematics is the language. So mathematics is a product of the mind. It just describes reality, and reality is not a product of the mind.
Okay, are the mathematical principles, say the Pythagorean theorem, is that a product of the mind or is that
Yes,
reality?
that's a product. That's a language product of the mind.
Okay, so the order that comes from Pythagorean theorem is something you made up in your head and I made up in my head, and they just happen to be the same.
No. I can make up like a different theory and call it Pythagorean theorem, and it would just be wrong. The reason
Okay.
Pythagorean theorem is the one we use is because it describes reality. It corresponds
That's
to
right.
reality.
That's right. It's reality. It's not you.
So
Now you-
like if I say I have a box and inside this box is a rabbit, and let's suppose there is actually a rabbit in the box, I could say, well, there's also a lizard in the box, but that would just be false. So the box with the rabbit in it is true, that description I'm giving, because it corresponds to reality. So the Pythagorean theorem is only true because it corresponds to reality. I mean, we can
Right.
make up a different kind of mathematical equation.
exactly
It doesn't, but it's just a figment of language. Just like if I
So
say
the Pythagorean theorem is reality.
the
We discover it. We don't create it.
No, the Pythagorean theorem describes reality. Just like if I say there is a capital of Ireland, that statement describes reality. It is true
Right.
because it describes reality. The statement is not real. The statement there
Right.
is a capital in Ireland is not like a real thing. It's just a made up language. The Pythagorean theorem, the actual letters and numbers in the organization, is just a language, just like saying there is a capital of Ireland. The fact that it corresponds to reality is what makes it true. So there's a reality independent of the math, which is what's true and what the math is describing, just like the word there is a capital of Ireland is describing the reality that there is one.
Well, it describes though the reality, the way that certain shapes can relate, and it's objectively true outside of our language.
Right, just like saying there is a capital of Ireland is objectively true outside of our language, but the language is subjective. The language is made up by humans.
No,
So
I
the
don't disagree with that.
the math, the Pythagorean theorem as written out on a sheet of paper is made up by humans.
Well, the symbols that we use, but the reality that it points to is not made up by humans. That's the point.
Right. But so the
You got
reality and the
you
math
got
are
the
separate
sign, you got the
things.
thing signified, and then you got the thing that it's the referent that it
Right,
has.
right, right. So math as an entire field, everything in math is just a language. What
Right.
the reality that exists independent of the math is true, independent, is not, is the thing it's referring to. But math as an entire field, all of mathematics is just a language.
Yes, I can say that, but the reference, the thing that it refers to, though, is not just a language. Our
Right, right. No, I
description of
agree.
it
So
is
reality
language.
is a thing. Reality exists. I agree. And
Right.
it refers to reality.
Right. And is all of reality contingent?
No, there's the necessary thing.
Okay. Is a necessary thing distinct from the contingent?
Yes, by
Okay. So,
definition.
so there's two types of ontologies in this universe, right?
Those are classification systems. It may or may not have anything to do with ontology.
What do you mean? They're not the same. They're not the same ontos. They're not the same being.
Well, it's like saying I can have one, like suppose my left finger happens to be the necessary thing, and every other part of my body is a contingent thing. So
No,
everything else,
your finger is affected upon, so it
this is
can't be
just
the necessary thing.
this is just an example. So if I have my
It doesn't.
finger is the point again, not relevant to the point. So if my right finger is the necessary thing and my left finger is a contingent thing, everything about my left finger can change and deteriorate and do whatever, but my right finger is still going to be unchanged. So the necessary thing could be a part of the contingent things
No,
in some sense. Yes, it can.
something cannot change and be unchanging at the same time in the same relationship. Law of non-contradiction. Once again.
No, again, that's not how it works. So you can
Oh,
have
it's not.
parts you can have parts that change and parts that
No,
don't change. So
no, because so ultimate reality is many and not one.
yes, obviously.
Okay, so everything. So part of it is changing, and part of it is not changing.
Right.
Okay, so how do you have the unchanging part be affected by the part that is changing and still be self-existent?
No, it wouldn't. The part that's not changing would affect the changing parts, not the other way around.
Say it again.
The part that is not changing would affect the changing parts, but the parts that are changing wouldn't affect the not changing part.
But they're the same being. So how can one being be
No, no, no.
changing?
It's like different parts, like my left and right finger. Like again, so you're equivocating between being and saying like one being is the collection of all the things together, which may change, but the part of it that isn't unchanging may not change. So there's no contradiction there. It's pretty simple to understand that there could be a part of something that is unchanging and other parts of the same collection of things that are changing. There's no contradiction there. It's a necessary part of reality. If you grant that there's a necessary thing, which is a part of reality, which is like a god or whatever, then there's parts of reality that are changing, which are like us or the contingent things. So there's necessarily the necessary thing and the contingent things, and they're both parts of reality. So, but reality, there's not a contradiction about reality there.
Okay, one ontology cannot be an admixture of contingency and self-existent at the same time in the same relationship, because the part that's contingent, the part
Right.
that changes, is not eternal, right?
Right. So I wouldn't say that. I'm saying that just like reality has a necessary part and contingent parts, the necessary thing is on its own, is a necessary thing, it's unchanging. But it
Okay,
can still be connected to the other parts just like it's part of
okay,
reality.
is a connected part eternal?
May or may not be. May or may not be.
It can't be contingent if it is.
Right, but the connection to the contingent parts doesn't make the parts that are contingent not exist. So the connection can be necessary, but the contingent parts are not.
Hey Jay, huh?
Happy New Year. I haven't seen
Happy New Year to you.
How you been?
I'm doing good, thanks. Yeah,
You gonna come?
yeah. I'm talking to somebody.
I'll see you Monday.
Okay.
I'll pick up a check Monday.
Oh,
Did I already pick it up?
no, you didn't. Yeah, I'll get it for you. All right, thanks. Sorry.
So yeah, you can like it's the same thing. In reality, there's the necessary thing and there are the contingent things, but they're both connected by reality. They're both in the category called reality. So in the same thing, you can have whatever reality is and whatever the necessary thing is. It can just be a natural necessary thing, and there are natural contingent things, and there's different, but they're still
What do you
they're
mean
both
by natural?
what
What do you mean by natural?
uh, just the opposite of a god, just
Ah,
sciencey stuff. There isn't
well,
like a there isn't like a
nature is changing.
there's not like a formal definition of natural and supernatural. I'm just trying to contrast them, God and not God, essentially.
Okay, because it's convenient for your argument.
Well,
But
it's just trying to
you,
express a point.
you
It's
can't
not,
have a God and the thing that it creates being eternally self-existing all at the same time in the same relationship.
Obviously, because God created it, but that wouldn't
Right.
contradict what
So
I
there's a
said.
time when it didn't exist, right?
Yes.
So then they can't be the same being, right?
Right. So I'm agreeing
Oh,
with
so
that. I'm
you
just
changed your
saying,
mind. They're not the same ontology.
well, they're both a part of reality. So if you're talking about an ontology of existing in reality, they'd both be in that ontology category.
Oh, no problem with that. Yeah. But I'm saying, is it the same thing?
Well, no,
No.
they wouldn't be exactly the same thing at the same time, because then they'd have to,
Right.
they wouldn't be able to share all properties, because that would be A equals A, the law of identity. So there is some difference, but they are still within the same set of reality. So you can
Well,
still
here's
have
what's in reality. Yeah, but they're not the same exact being.
well, yeah, obviously.
Because one of them doesn't exist for eternity.
Right. So there's a difference between them, but they're both within the same ontology of reality. So they can still be within the same set of ontologies and have two separate properties, one being necessary, one being contingent.
Set of ontologies. I guess you could equivocate that and say, yeah, it's just two different beings, which is exactly what I'm saying.
Right. So I'm just saying the same thing. There can be a necessary part of reality, which is natural, non-godly, and a contingent part of reality, which is natural, non-godly.
Okay, so it's not the same being that is both necessary and contingent, right?
Right. No, they're not the same. If they were the same,
Okay,
then they couldn't.
We're making progress here. All right, so we have two beings. One is not eternal. One is eternal. We are not the eternal part, right?
Presumably, yes.
Okay, so therefore, there must be a being that is self-existent that must purpose contingency into existence.
No.
Because you have to value it in order to make it, right?
No, value has nothing to do with that. Like I can make things without valuing them accidentally all the time. I knock over a cup and I make a mess. I don't value the mess. You can make things without valuing them.
Did you purpose to move, to do the knocking over?
Sure, but the particle didn't, and the particle can knock over the cup just like I can.
And on your point, it was an accident, right?
Yes.
Okay, so accidents do not happen by self-existent beings because they are infallible.
No. There's fallibility is a value judgment, so you're circular reasoning. For example, there could be a quantum particle, which is a necessary thing. The necessary entity is a quantum particle.
No, quantum particle is not necessary.
Yes, it can be. Anything can be necessary. You can't prove what
necessary. It can be contingently necessary, as you could say it's a fundamental particle of the universe, but you cannot say it's ontologically necessary.
No, I can say it's ontologically necessary. I can say that there is a fundamental part of reality, which is a quantum particle that we haven't discovered yet, which is the ontologically necessary ground of all existence.
Okay, yeah. Well, okay. Now we're just equivocating names.
No, it's not conscious, so it can't be a god. So it's just like a quantum particle that we discover in Earth, but it's just has the necessary quality to it that we haven't discovered yet. So it's just like any other quantum particle, no consciousness, no mind, no personality, no intentionality, no purpose, and it has a certain set of properties, and those properties can collapse in such a way to produce the universe just as it is.
Oh, so those properties must change.
No, they're just eternal, essentially.
Okay, so is it a whole bunch of particles together that are composed?
No, it's just one. Just one quantum particle.
One thing. Well, how could it collapse?
That's just how quantum particles work. I don't know. I don't know. Like,
it changes.
Ask a physicist.
You see a problem with that, with it changing?
No.
If something collapses, it changes.
Quantum particles can exist outside of space and time. So if God can essentially make a decision to create things outside of space and time, then so can quantum particles, and they have equally non-changing, or they're equally changing or non-changing, however you want to define it.
I thought you said it was just one particle.
It is.
You just said quantum particles. There
quantum
can't
particle.
be more.
I said one.
Necessary.
Quantum particle.
Okay, so there's a quantum particle that created everything, and it fell in on itself, but it can't change.
Exactly, just like you can think God can make a decision without changing. So anything God can do, a quantum particle can do. So there's no problem there.
All right, listen, Tom, I got to get going. I got a ton of work today, and I'm not going to be able to get done tonight. If I don't, I'll probably have to work tomorrow anyway.
Sure, no problem.
But I very much appreciate the conversation. Very stimulating and enjoyable, and I appreciate you for inviting me on. Maybe we can do it again.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was a good convo.
Okay. All right, we'll see you.
Talk to you later.